3 days ago, the internet froze. Not because of a rocket launch or a stock surge, but because of 18 quiet words written by a man the world thought it already understood. Elon Musk, the visionary who promised Mars, who turned cars into computers, who made the impossible feel routine, suddenly reminded everyone he was human. The message wasn't sent to shareholders or engineers. It wasn't drafted by a PR team or scheduled for midnight hype. It was a private note written to his children. 18 words, honest, vulnerable, and stripped of every layer of control that usually defines him. When it surfaced, people didn't scroll past. They stopped. Because in those few lines, the man who built empires revealed the one thing he couldn't build: time. For years, the world saw Elon as a machine, a man who sleeps on factory floors, who races against extinction itself, who lives to out-invent the limits of humanity. But behind the timelines and tweets was something deeper, a silence that no amount of innovation could fill. The silence of missed birthdays, unanswered calls, and the hollow echo of ambition consuming everything in its path. That's what those 18 words carried, the sound of realization. The sound of a father recognizing that every launch into the future was pulling him further from the people he loved most. It spread across social media like wildfire. Screenshots, analyses, think pieces, everyone trying to decode what it meant. Was it regret? A breakdown? Or something even rarer in the world of billionaires and tech gods? A moment of truth. For a man whose every sentence can move markets, this was the first time his words moved hearts. And in that moment, the image of Elon Musk shifted. The armor cracked. The myth bent under the weight of something far more powerful than any rocket thrust: emotion. The same mind that imagined colonies on Mars was now confronting the smallest, most human orbit of all: family. Maybe it wasn't a publicity stunt. Maybe it wasn't a leak at all. Maybe it was something else. A message meant not for us, but for him. A confession that had been waiting years to escape. Because behind every success story, there's a cost no headline mentions. Behind every genius is a loneliness that genius itself can't solve. And sometimes it takes just 18 words to remind the world that even those who reach for the stars still long for home. This is the story of that message. Where it came from, what it revealed, and why it changed the way millions see the most ambitious man alive. A story of ambition, loss, and redemption. A story that forces us to ask, when you've built everything, what's left to apologize for? 3 days ago, a message leaked that sent shockwaves through both Silicon Valley and Hollywood. A short, private note written not by a publicist or a media strategist, but by one of the most powerful and relentlessly driven men alive. It wasn't a corporate statement or a PR maneuver. It was a confession, raw, personal, and disarmingly human. Just 18 words long, yet they carried the weight of a lifetime. I'm sorry. I chose work over you and that was wrong. I want to change. 18 words. That was all it took to pierce through the polished image of a man known for building rockets, revolutionizing cars, and reshaping the future. For decades, his name had been synonymous with genius, innovation, and relentless ambition. But behind the headlines and billion-dollar valuations was a father, exhausted, haunted, and quietly breaking under the weight of his own success. The world knew him as an icon of progress. His children knew him as someone who rarely came home for dinner. When the message leaked, it spread faster than any product launch he'd ever orchestrated. The internet exploded with speculation, sympathy, and disbelief. Comment sections filled with stories from people who saw their own regrets mirrored in his words. Parents who had missed birthdays. Spouses who'd watched relationships crumble under the glow of late-night work emails. Sons and daughters who had waited years for an apology that never came. But few knew the story behind those 18 words, or the series of quiet heartbreaks that finally pushed him to write them. This wasn't a sudden epiphany. It was a slow unraveling, years in the making. For the man at the center of this story, the realization didn't come with a dramatic accident or public downfall. It came in fragments, through missed moments and silences that stretched too long, through the small, unspoken disappointments of his children. The kind of heartbreak that doesn't make headlines, but leaves scars that never fully heal. The first crack appeared 2 years ago, on what should have been one of the proudest nights of his life. SpaceX had just completed its 100th Falcon 9 launch, a milestone that symbolized everything he'd worked for. The mood inside Mission Control was electric. The team erupted in cheers, champagne corks flew, and the world watched in awe as another flawless launch proved what once seemed impossible. Cameras flashed, journalists lined up for interviews, and congratulatory messages poured in from world leaders, CEOs, and admirers around the globe. But amid the celebration, his phone buzzed with a message that stopped him cold. 3 simple words from his teenage daughter: "You missed it." At first, he didn't understand. Missed what? The launch was perfect. The company had achieved another impossible feat. But when he called her, expecting to share his excitement, her tone told a different story. There was no pride, no joy, just quiet disappointment. "My school presentation," she said softly, "the one I told you about last week." "And the week before that?" He froze. The truth hit like a punch. Somewhere between design reviews, press calls, and investor meetings, his daughter's moment had slipped off his radar entirely. He tried to apologize, fumbling for words that might make it right. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Why don't we—" "It's fine, Dad," she interrupted. But it wasn't fine. Her voice was flat, heavy with the kind of hurt that doesn't show up in analytics or performance charts. Mom was there. "I'm used to it." Those last 3 words echoed in his mind for weeks. "I'm used to it." The sound of quiet resignation from someone too young to have already stopped expecting her father to show up. That night, lying in bed, surrounded by awards and technology prototypes, he found himself unable to sleep. He told himself he was building the future, that the work mattered, that his absence was justified by purpose. But deep down, a quieter truth pressed against the walls of his certainty. His daughter didn't need a father who changed the world. She needed a father who remembered her presentation. But he pushed the guilt away, the way he always did. There were deadlines to meet, rockets to build, timelines to hit. A man like him couldn't afford hesitation. That was the price of ambition, or so he thought. 6 months later came the second crack. At a dinner table that was supposed to symbolize reconnection. For once, he had cleared his entire evening. No meetings, no calls, no distractions, just family. They were barely 15 minutes into dinner when his 13-year-old son asked a question that would cut deeper than any business loss. "Dad, what's my favorite subject in school?" It was an innocent question, but it landed like a test he hadn't studied for. He hesitated, searching for an answer. Science, math, surely one of those. But the silence that followed said it all. His son's expression shifted from curiosity to sadness. Then came the quiet correction. "It's history? I've been obsessed with World War II for 2 years now. I've read 37 books about it. But you wouldn't know that because you've never asked." The room fell silent. The clinking of forks stopped. No one knew what to say. The man who could recite the trajectory data of every rocket he'd ever launched couldn't recall a single detail about his own son's passions. For the rest of dinner, he tried to ask questions, to show interest, but the damage was already done. His son had learned what so many children of greatness quietly learn, that brilliance often casts long shadows at home. That night, for the first time in years, he broke down. Not over a failed launch or a business setback, but over the realization that he was losing the one thing no technology could rebuild: his family's trust. He remembered the promise he'd once made to himself as a young man, to be a different kind of father than the one he had growing up, to be present, to be kind, to show up. Somewhere along the way, that promise had been buried under the weight of ambition. He began to wonder, when had absence become normal? When had work stopped being a calling and started becoming a hiding place? The truth was painful. It hadn't happened all at once. It had happened through thousands of small decisions that all seemed reasonable at the time. One more meeting, one more email, one more late night at the factory. Each choice made sense until they didn't. Until they added up to a lifetime of missed moments. In the weeks that followed, he started tracking his time, analyzing it the way he would a complex system failure. The results were brutal. Out of 168 hours in a week, over 110 were devoted to work. Another 42 to sleep? That left 16 hours for everything else. Family, friends, life. 16 hours a week to be a father. But even those hours weren't truly his. He was still checking messages during dinner, still mentally elsewhere, still letting his phone dictate the rhythm of his home. His children had learned to read his face before approaching him, to gauge whether he was truly listening or just pretending. They had learned caution, hesitation, distance, the subtle, silent habits of children who've learned that love must compete for attention. And then came the breaking point, the day a note slipped into his hands during a board meeting that would change everything.